So, board member by the name of Ambrose Silverwolf is having a little trouble with intermediate lesson 7, I believe. Let's give him a hand here. So, we build the thing, and we see it working, and then crazy bullshit happens. Buffer overrun and other dumb shit. So what the fuck? Well, first thing you do is you switch over to debug, because that is what you do. That's how we do. And then you try it again. Try to build that mother. And she's running. But if we try to press a key, we try to type, we get another error. And here our error is on key pressed. So when we press the key, we push a key code onto the queue. So you might think, easy, right? Obviously, we got a problem with the way we're handling the queue. Except that is not what is going on here. And you can stare at this queue code all you want. You aren't going to find an error because there is no error. So where's the error? Well, let's do something here. I'm going to give you a hint. We'll try to run this one with the debugger attached in release mode. And we see it's moving. And I press the key. And now we're not getting an error. We should be seeing characters here. We don't see any. But we're also not getting an error. We get one when we close it. Now this is a big clue. Why is this a clue? Because our program is doing different shit depending on whether we're in release or debug, and depending on whether or not we've attached the debugger to the running process. And that is a clue, my friends. Because release and debug, they should behave the same. They should be functionally equivalent. The only difference being is that debug has a bunch of extra bullshit in there for debugging, right? Diagnostics and such. But they're not behaving the same, and therefore something weird is going on. Now this is usually the part where people say, you know, fucking compilers must be bugged. That's not what it is. 99.95% of the time, that is not what it is. No, my friends, this is a symptom of something quite a bit more insidious. This is basically somewhere in your program, you've got memory access, and it's fucking around with memory that it ain't supposed to be fucking around with. And if you do that, you get a situation where some part of your code is completely destroying and corrupting the data from a totally unrelated part. And that makes it really hard to debug, because we know, well, let's go back to debug mode here. We know that the program is puking, it's shitting the bed whenever we press the keys. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with the code involved with pressing the keys. So the trick is now, okay, we suspect that there might be some memory corruption going on here. How do we go about rooting that shit out? Now the way I do it, I just start commenting shit out of the program until it starts working again. I narrow down the situation. So, for example, I'd start commenting out this draw shit. So draw sprite. I'd get rid of all this. Let's see here. And so I'd start there. I'd build. And then I'd start debugging, press the button, still get the error. Okay, so that was not where our problem was. We still got our problem. And I just keep doing that. I comment this out. This to this one. Let's see what happens. Build. Yeah, we'll stop debugging. And now we got nothing. We still get the error. So that wasn't the problem. Nothing in our composed frame was causing the problem. And we just keep doing that. We just comment out as much bullshit as we can. And if you do that, you'll find that nothing in here was causing the problem. When I was debugging it, I commented everything out except for this block. And I even commented out this line and this line. So all I had was the thing that was triggering the eventual breakpoint, or the exception, which was read key, I believe. And so then you got to start looking at other things like initialization. Initializing the graphics, the audio, so you can remove the audio from the system, remove the mouse, and take a look at what's left, what is happening. And if we look at the initialization of the keyboard, so we go to keyboard, let's go to keyboard.h. Keyboard server, it's got the an array of key states here, and then it's got the Q. So we go to keyboard server, the constructor here, and we look at it, and we look at this, and we say, gotcha. I got you, you motherfucker. So we're looping through basically from 0 to n keys, which is all of the indexes in key states. And what we want to do is set them to false, but we're not using the index, the looping variable, to set. We're using n keys, which is the number of elements in that array, which is a problem because an array of n elements only goes from 0 to n minus 1. So element number n is actually the one element past the end of the array. Now we're into other memory. And what other memory would we be getting into? Well, it's none other than our friend the Q. So what this is doing is it's setting the first 32 bits of this Q object to Boolean false, whatever that is. It's probably 0, right? And that is totally fucking with the way that the Q works. Now the thing is, depending on whether you're building in release or debugging what you're doing, the memory will, the way the memory will be organized will be changing, and that's why you get different behavior. Sometimes this will fuck up your queue, sometimes it won't. So what do? Well, it's quite simple. We go back to here, and we set this to index. And we build that. Actually, we got to go back to game now. Now that we found our problem, we can uncomment all the stuff that we commented out. And then, my friends, we build. Build like you've never built before. I'm feeling confident. We'll go into release mode here. Start without debugging. And now if we type, we get characters appearing here, which is exactly what we wanted. So that's it. That's the problem solved. It's a pretty fucking hard bug to get because you're not even looking in that area. But you can do it by process of elimination. You just keep eliminating shit until you figure out where the problem is. It's a pain in the ass, but it's all you got. Now we're lucky here. This is a pretty small project. In a larger project, this could be like a fucking deal breaker. So how do we avoid this kind of situation? Well, one way to do it, I mean, obviously be careful when you're writing your code, but everyone makes mistakes. I'm sure I've made a mistake, that exact mistake before in my life, in my programming career. So, yeah, get good is one thing, but that's not a solution. Another way of mitigating that kind of problem or making it less, I don't know, less likely to occur. I'm just going to revert this back the way it was. Is using smarter data types. So instead of making it a Boolean, I'm going to include vector. And now what we can do, we can make this a vector of bools. I think that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. And everything else should work fine for this one. All we gotta do is we go into keyboard server. So we just we create our vector here, key states, and we started off with the size and keys. And if we do that, now we try to run our program, and we get a debug assertion failed, iterator not dereferenceable. We retry that shit, break, and we get the actual point where the error was occurring. So we use a smarter data type, and we get better feedback from the debugger. All right. So that's one way of doing it. Now, I mean, you don't even need a vector for this. It's a little bit of an overkill. It's not a bad idea, but you can get the same thing with a C style or C++ style array. So you just go array. And with arrays, you have to specify the size right in the template. So you're going to go n keys. And that'll give you the same deal. Build that. Yeah, stop debugging. And you run that shit, and you get another, here we go. Array subscript out of range. That's an even better message. You can't ask for anything better than that, right? So that is how using data types, different data types, can save your ass when you make mistakes. Now, people in, for example, places like Stack Exchange or whatever, they'll tell you always use vectors, never use C-style arrays. And that is retarded, because vectors, no matter what anyone's going to tell you, vectors are always going to be slower than an array. They're never going to be faster than just a straight array. And usually they're going to be somewhat slower. But it depends. You got to use your head. Now, in this situation with the keyboard here, this is not a performance-intensive object. This isn't going to be the weakest link in our program. So it actually makes better sense to use a STL array in here than to use just a naked C array. So I don't agree with use vectors everywhere, but I also realize that myself, I tend to use arrays more common. I should use the STL stuff more often, because in situations like this, it really does save your ass. Now, another way you can prevent these mistakes is, instead of using like a for loop like this, and you can take advantage of new C++ stuff, or even old stuff. Like, for example, you can do std, and what is it? Fill. This is an algorithm. And then you're going to do key states.begin, key states.end, and the value you want to fill in there, false. So usually with algorithms, why don't you like that? Function template. All right, here we go. There you go. Happy now? So with algorithms like this, you give them a a begin and an end iterator, and it just goes to town and does all the stuff that you need to do. So build that. That works fine, right? No problem. The other way you could do it is you could use a new C++. This has been around for a while, stdfill. But a new thing you could use is for, and you could do for each bool reference, I don't know, B in key states. You just do a range-based for, and in there you just go key states, where did you go, B is equal to false. So you do that, and that just works for every bool in there. And then, in this case, that works too. In this case, you don't even need to, that was the word I'm looking for, you don't need to use indexes or anything. You don't even need to get the iterators for this one, but it does that automatically in the background. But no, the advantage is you're not actually providing the indexes yourself manually, so you're reducing the amount of places where you can fuck shit up. The neat thing about this one here is it works even with just standard arrays. So you could go back here, and you could just change this to bool key states in keys, and that'll build, unless I'm a liar, which I might be. But yeah, this works fine too, and again, no problems. But in this case, like I said before, I would actually recommend using, probably in this case, the best one is an STL array. You could also use a vector, that's fine too. I like array better because you can't resize it, so it actually limits the amount of things that you can do. Whereas with vectors, you could resize them by accident somehow and fuck it up. But yeah, the thing I'm trying to say here is that the STL and smart data types will save your ass if you use them. So use them, and I should use them more. I've been using them more in the advanced series. But I also want to say that as a game programmer, like if you're working for a company, you're making, software for a bank or something, your most important thing is that it doesn't fuck up. Because you're not allowed to fuck up even once. If you're doing transactions for, millions of dollars or whatever, you aren't allowed to fuck up. So of course you're going to use the safest shit you can always. But as game programmer, you also have to think about performance. How fast is it? How many frames per second can I get? So you've got to think, is this code going to be performance critical? And if the answer is no, then you should probably consider using STL stuff as much as possible. If the answer is yes, then you've got to start to think, maybe I should be using, more naked arrays, buffers of just raw data. Just cram out as much performance as I can. So that's the thing. So I just wanted to talk about STL and stuff like that, and show you a little bit about how to debug a difficult nut to crack. And I guess I'll see you later next time I crank out a tutorial. Peace.